This video supported in part by...
Playing VR, I tend to sweat. It gives me an edge. So King of Nerds happens to give me an edge too. Let King of Nerds give you the edge. Bye, King of Nerds.
Over the past week or so, these images have been leaked online via MyArcade's social media presence. And I'm talking about Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and wherever else they may be. And when I say leaked, of course, what I'm saying is part of a publicity campaign by MyArcade to drum up interest and anticipation for a new product or products that they clearly have coming up in the pipeline. Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I am John, and I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you for the click. And if you did click, odds are, because like me, you are curious about what may be coming in the near future from MyArcade. Now, there was a time when MyArcade was putting out regularly their micro arcades, many of those with NES ROMs. We're talking, Galaga and Pac-Man and Dig Dug and stuff like that, a lot of Namco. And then later they came out with the premium line, which included arcade ROMs in a tabletop arcade toy. Well, there was a lot of nothing for a long time, and then recently, of course, they started coming out with the Pico and the Nano, some new releases, which I think was exciting in the terms of what they were as a new product, but they weren't anything new that we hadn't seen before. It was a Data East collection and some Jalico sports titles. But these images certainly have me curious, and let me just say up front that I have a really good relationship with MyArcade. They regularly send me product to review, and as soon as I saw these images, I reached out to them and I said, "What is this? I'm super excited." And they're like, "Hey there, John, GenXGrownUp, you just relax. When we can tell you, we will." But they refused to tell me exactly what was going on. So, like you, I am in the dark. I'm not spilling any secret proprietary information. I am also waiting to find out what's going on. But I think we can make some educated guesses by analyzing these images. Now, there are two images that we're talking about here. One of them seems to be maybe a really high-resolution photo, and the other is clearly just an artist's rendition of a product. But I think there are about four things that we can point out here and talk about, and by comparing and contrasting the two images, we can probably deduce what's going on and maybe talk about what could be coming from MyArcade. So let's start, obviously, dead center. We have this rainbow circle with what appears to be either a stainless steel or a chromium kind of plastic joystick sticking right out of it in the middle. Now, I'm only assuming that's a joystick because in context, it's next to a button. We'll talk about the button in a second, but it looks like a joystick. And in the artist rendering, there's even a red dot atop where the kind of the center of the joystick would be. Now, why this rainbow circle around it? Is that actually representative of how it will look all the time, or is it just to show that there is a lighted ring around some kind of a joystick? And I think just from that much, we can deduce that just like what MyArcade has been doing, this is a new, some sort of arcade toy or a handheld device to play older games. The next thing I want to look at, I'm going to hold the button for last. We'll get to that in a second. The next thing is the shape of the unit. And you can see, not in the photograph, but in the artist rendering, it very clearly appears to be kind of a rounded rectangle. So that reminds me quite a bit of the MyArcade pocket players, which are little handheld devices that played Pac-Man or played Dig Dug or Contra or whatever it was. It reminds me very much of that with the, just kind of it has that chamfered, I learned chamfered because I used to have Apple products, the chamfered corners. But it has this chamfered kind of bezel around the outside that appears to be, there's a flat area and then a declining area before you get to the side of the unit. And that just looks like something you would hold in your hand because you would chamfer that to make it comfortable to hold in your hand. So that makes sense. And plus, as a joystick, look, I'm not jumping to any radical leaps of logic to think it's a handheld control of some kind. The third thing I want to look at here is this grate on the top. There's this little grill. When I first saw it in the rendered photo, what I thought was, well, this clearly has to be a speaker. But then we see it in the artist rendering here, and I'm not so convinced. Like, I don't see any clear path for audio to come out. I'm not seeing that it might just be, just an industrial design look or something. And so what else had those kind of grill fins? Well, this smells an awful lot like me to be inspired by the Atari 2600, because the Atari 2600, of course, had those grill marks on the top of the console. And that would lend itself to being a design element of something if in fact it was Atari oriented. So That's a possibility. And that all brings me finally to the fourth thing I want to talk about in these images, and that's the button. Look, I'm assuming it's a button. It's a circle. In the photograph, it appears to be one of those clear pocket player style buttons where the printing is indented and it's kind of a candy coating kind of clear button on top, and has an A on it, which suggests, again, next to a joystick. Again, I don't think it's a leap of logic to think it is a button, an action button of some kind. But the final thing that leaps off the screen to me is the letter A, especially in artist rendering, is very clearly printed in the font called Mumbo. Now, Mumbo is traditionally the font that has been used for Atari products. It's used in the VCS. It was used on the early cartridges. I'll put up some on the screen so you can see some more text in that font. And you can see the A is very definitely an Atari A. And in even one of the tweets they sent out, it said, hey, what do you think the A is for? Which is an awfully big hint. If you're using the Atari font and you have those little grill marks on the side that look like the 2600, and you have that A in the font of Atari, it just smells so much like me, like they're doing either a handheld or tabletop toy that is Atari oriented. Now, as far as I know, My Arcade has never had an Atari license. So this would sound like maybe Atari's getting together with them to put out some Atari themed products. Now, this may age like milk because in the next few days, we're liable to find out more about this and it's going to just blow up my theories and assumptions. But at the moment, based on these photos, I would suppose that My Arcade is about to put out either some handheld or tabletop toys with a brand new Atari license. I don't know. Do you think I'm crazy? What do you think? Is it something you would be interested in buying, or am I reading this all wrong? Is there something else here that I'm missing that I clearly didn't catch? Please let me know. Sound off in the comments down below this video and let me know what you think about my theories, or if you've heard any more that I haven't or seen some images I have not. I'm really curious to hear what you think. Until then, I hope you found something to enjoy in this video. I'll throw some links in the corners over my shoulder for some other videos you can check out right now if you're curious about My Arcade and their products. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.